Let's start with a really powerful question. What if the very code you live by, the script you follow every single day, is actually designed to destroy you? Well, today, we're going to dig into that exact idea, using Theodore Dreiser's classic novel, The Financier. We're going to use its main character as a kind of case study to understand the deep connection between our personal will, the power we have, and the consequences that always follow. So let's meet our guy, Frank Cowperwood. When he was just a kid, he saw this fish tank, and he learned one single brutal lesson: the strong eat the weak. Now for him, this wasn't just some casual observation. Oh no, it became his life's guiding script, the fundamental code that would dictate every single move he'd make from that day forward.
And this brings up a fascinating question, not just for him, but for all of us. What happens when the very script that makes you feel so powerful is also the one that's secretly engineering your downfall? Cowperwood's story is just a perfect, powerful exploration of that paradox.
Okay, so to really get what drove this man, we've got to look at the engine of his ambition. It was raw, it was powerful, and it was completely, totally unchecked. It was the very core of his personal script.
To analyze this, we're going to use a concept we'll call the vector of will. Just think of it as pure, raw force, a way to measure someone's personal power. Now, on its own, it's totally neutral, kind of like electricity. But here's the critical thing to get. Whether it builds something up or tears it all down depends entirely on the direction you point it.
And this describes Cowperwood to a T. His vector of will was completely off the charts. I mean, the man was a true force of nature, brilliant and incredibly driven. But his life script, that code he lived by, pointed all of that power toward just one goal: personal gain. He had zero regard for rules, for ethics, or for any of the people he had to steamroll to get what he wanted.
So, what happens next? You know, when a powerful will like that is guided by a predatory script, it doesn't just build an empire. It also, and this is inevitable, sows the seeds of its own destruction.
And this brings us to our second big concept: systemic chaos. See, when a person's actions, their will vector, consistently violate the established order of the system, whether that's society, the market, the law, whatever, the system pushes back. It's like an immune response. It generates this wave of opposition, of chaos, to try and restore balance.
This was Cowperwood's exact journey. He followed his predatory script to the letter. He manipulated markets, he had scandalous affairs, he misused public funds, and from his point of view, each step felt like a win, a personal success. But what he didn't see was that with every move, he was just generating more and more systemic chaos, creating enemies and instability all around him.
So what happens when one man's personal script puts him on a direct collision course with the script of society itself? Well, the answer is pretty simple. There's always a reckoning. The system always wins in the end.
You just can't escape it. I mean, it doesn't matter how powerful you are, how brilliant, or how strong your will is. You cannot override the fundamental law of consequences. A predatory script is literally a ticking time bomb, and it always explodes in the hands of the person who wrote it.
For Cowperwood, that bomb went off in 1873. A financial crisis hit, and to save himself, what did he do? He doubled down on his flawed script, illegally using city funds. That was the last straw. The systemic chaos he'd been creating finally came together, and the system responded decisively. A trial and a prison sentence. His own script led him right into a cage.
But here's the thing. Cowperwood's story doesn't just end there in a prison cell. In fact, his defeat shows us something absolutely crucial about the nature of will itself.
Okay, so his external power? Gone. His freedom? Gone. But his internal vector of will? It was completely unbroken. Think about that. In prison, he wasn't sorry. He was analyzing, he was planning, he was waiting. He was still sticking to his script, just playing from a different position on the board.
And this reveals the core lesson of the whole story. Sheer willpower is not enough. It only guarantees that you'll keep taking action. But if the script itself, the code you're following, remains flawed and predatory, then all that willpower is going to do is just recreate the same cycle of chaos and opposition over and over again. So, this brings us to the ultimate takeaway here. If sticking to a predatory script only leads to this endless struggle, how do you build something that actually lasts? Simple. You have to rewrite the script. And this lays out two very clear choices.
On one hand, you have the path of predatory will. Yeah, it's strong, but it's fundamentally unstable. It creates constant opposition and leads to a life of struggle. But the other path, the ecological will, is both strong and stable. It creates alignment, and it leads to genuine, resilient freedom.
The goal, then, isn't to weaken your will. Not at all. It's about calibrating it. It's about consciously choosing a script that works with the system, not against it. A script that builds lasting value instead of just sucking it dry. So how do we actually make that shift from predation to creation? Well, it all begins with a conscious choice to rewrite our own script. And this requires a new framework for our decisions, a tool we can call the code of choice, a deliberate way to point our will toward order instead of chaos.
And that's really the final thought I want to leave you with today. Frank Cowperwood had his code. The code eats the weak fish. And he stuck to that script until it completely destroyed him. So the real question for us is, what's the script that guides you? What is the code for your choice?